Welcome to another episode of the Sussex Non-League Podcast, where we take a look at all things non-league in Sussex. I'm Matt Pole, and I'm joined by SussexWorld duo Mark Dunford and Steve Bone, who will be helping me dissect all the latest goings-on at our grassroots football clubs. Worthing were hit by the mother of all bombshells this week as Adam Hinshelwood departed Woodside Road to become the new boss at York City. This week also saw Horsham and Steyning face off in the first Sussex Senior Cup semi-final, while a Sussex club continue their unlikely European adventure. We'll pick over all of this and more in this week's Sussex Non-League Podcast, but we'll start with the news that Adam Hinshelwood has ended his 6-year spell at Worthing to join division above York City. The ex-Brighton defender has reportedly signed a long-term deal at the Minster Men, and I think it's safe to say, Steve Bone, that absolutely none of us saw this coming.
No, not at all. No, I think from talking to people at Worthing this week, and I've heard from fans, everyone from fans right through to the chairman, they're all sort of saying they kind of expected Adam to go at some point because he's been so successful. And you don't have that sort of success without attracting attention from higher up the pyramid or the ladder, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think anybody expected him to go now with Worthing sort of close to the end of a potential promotion winning season or a playoff, a playoff season. And I think the destination surprised people a bit because York is a long way away. It's right up north. Is York apparently long way away, and it's a big move for him. It's a big move in terms of his career, but it's also a big move for his family and everything. He's uprooting them. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. I was tipped off about it on Tuesday morning, and immediately contacted texted both Adam and the Worthing chairman, Barry Hunter. And when the day went on without either of them replying to me, I thought, right, if there was nothing in this, one of them would have replied to me and said, no, nothing in it. And they didn't. Absolutely. They couldn't say anything. They were sort of sworn to secrecy until York announced it that evening, and then we were onto it. But well done to Adam first of all, because he wouldn't have got this move to a big, famous old club, National League Premier club, who have got big plans and big ambitions. He wouldn't have got that without the success he's had at Worthing. Let's not forget he's taken Worthing from the sort of a quite a lowly position in the Isthmian League when he took over to the top of the National South. Not quite top, but they're third currently in National South, in with a chance of promotion to the National Premier themselves. So well done to him. But yeah, I think it's it's caused a bit of chaos at Worthing. I think it's fair to say.
It's a big club in it, York City. So I can see the attraction. I was interested by the phrase career-changing move for him. So there must be a fair bit of money in it for him in that as well, which obviously is not going to be about just that for Adam, having spoken to him before and that. But it's a big old move, but it's a big challenge as well, isn't it, I think? Because
the first thing he's got to do is make sure they stay up in the National Premier, because they are a bit close to the drop zone at the moment. So that'll be his first challenge. And then I think if that happens, I think there'll be money there for him to boost the squad, and they'll be looking at the other end of the National Premier table next season.
Well, you've kind of mentioned it there that Hinshelwood has been immensely successful at the Reds. Amongst his many honours have been winning the Isthmian Premier titles, Sussex Senior Cup win as well. He's also guided the club to the upper echelons of the National League South table. When you look at the cold, hard stats there, Mark, is he arguably the greatest manager in the club's history? I know it might be quite a strong statement, but you look at those honours and he's certainly up there, surely.
He's got to be, because this is the highest they've ever been, and I'm sure Steve will correct me if I'm wrong with that. But it's the highest they've ever been, and first season they got in the National South, they got in the playoffs, and then they're replicating it again today, and they've got to be one of the favourites to go up through the playoffs. I know Yeovil are walking away with it, aren't they? But I think, I think he probably is the greatest manager ever. But I've had a look through the stats on that, and it's a chap called Barry Lloyd, who managed them between 1981 and 1986, and in that time they won the Isthmian League Division 1, Division 2. They had their best ever FA Cup run, getting into the second round during his tenure as well. So, that Barry Lloyd will be putting his hand up if he's around. I don't know. I'm saying, what about me? Don't forget about me. But I mean, they've had some great names down the years. You've had Gary Alfick, obviously, Simon Colburn, Brian Donnelly, Jerry Armstrong, Alan Pook, all quite famous names within Sussex football. But his achievements, I mean, I know he got to the FA Cup first round again this year. That was the fifth time I think they'd ever got there. So yeah, I think it's a hard case if you're going to say he's not Worthing's greatest ever manager, because they've done so well. And it's just and I was reading a lot of the comments when York City announced it, and there was a few Worthing fans went on York City's Facebook account and there, or Twitter, and replied saying, "You've got such a good manager here. Not just the fact that he plays great football, but he's just a lovely bloke." And he is. I mean, we had him on the our other podcast, didn't we?
Yes.
Adam Hinshelwood. And he is. Yeah. He just seems so level-headed, down to earth. I mean, his son is smashing it in the Premier League at the moment as well. So he's he's got to be their best ever manager, I think. And I'm sure Ian Hart will tell me otherwise if he's not.
Well, it will certainly be a tough act to follow. Worthing are third currently in the National League South table as they look to get a promotion to the National League Premier. But in the interim, Steve, who has followed on from Hinch since his departure, and do we have any indication as to who could potentially be a permanent successor to him?
Yeah, so they were very quick to name the interim team, as they've called it. Aaron Racine, very experienced former player, very popular former Worthing player, centre-half, captain, retired not all that long ago, really, because he's had some injury problems, decided to hang up his boots. He has been installed as interim manager, and he'll be assisted by Darren Budd, who's another, he's Mr. Sussex Football, isn't he? Darren Budd, he's been everywhere, he's played everywhere, he's coached, and he's got some good a lot of praise for some of his coaching he's done more recently. So he's in there as well, along with Dean Hammond, ex-pro player, he was at Southampton for a while, and I think is known to Aaron. So they are the trio to oversee the rest of the season. I asked Barry Hunter, the Worthing chairman, what happens beyond that, and at the moment they don't know. They've kind of separated the rest of this season to the longer term. At the moment, they're not thinking beyond just getting through this season, seeing where they end up. They should get in the playoffs from the position they're in, and they should get a good slot in the playoffs. At the moment they're on course for a home playoff semi-final. So you have to say that if Aaron, Darren and Dean do well, maybe they'll be putting their hats into the ring for the job on a longer term basis. But Barry Hunter did tell me they'd already had interest from others who are eyeing up that job. You would imagine there's a lot of people at national south and north level, and maybe one or two that have managed at higher levels looking to get in there, because it's a progressive club, got a good setup, good infrastructure, good youth system with some good young players coming through. So that's a good job for somebody else to come into.
Definitely.
Is there a danger, finally on the subject of Worthing, there's a danger that a decision like this could potentially derail Worthing's season a little bit? I know that they're third, but I must admit I don't know. Are they well ensconced in the playoff places at the moment? They're quite a way ahead of the teams who are not in the playoffs. It can go both ways, though, can't it? If a manager has been at a club that long, he's built that team and built that squad, he knows the players inside out. To lose that manager, you could, if the new management team lost their first couple of games, that could be a problem, couldn't it? They've actually, Worthing have lost their last two with Adam still in charge, so they do need to get back to winning ways pretty quickly to make sure they stay in that top three. I think they've got enough in the bag to get in the playoffs. I think they'll get over the line. They've got Ollie Pearce scoring goals for fun still. Whether they can win the playoffs, that's a different matter altogether, isn't it? You need a bit of luck as well. So I think they'll be in the playoffs. Whether they'll win them, I wouldn't like to say. So I think we'll be having a discussion at the end of the season about what do Worthing do now. Absolutely. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Horsham met Steyning Town in the first Senior Cup semi-final at Lancing Tuesday evening. And who ran out victorious in that, Steve Bone?
Yeah, so Horsham are into their first Sussex Senior Cup final, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong here because you've got the stats on this. Is it the first one for 18 years?
Yep, first one since 2006.
So well done to Dom and the team for getting there. Had a great season in the Cups, haven't they? FA Cup headlines all over the place. FA Trophy, they had a good run in, got to the last 32, and now into the Cup final. Beat Steyning 4-1. Steyning felt a bit hard done by because they scored first. They then had centre-half Nathan Cooper booked for time wasting, when in Steyning's view, he should never have been booked. He apparently was going to take a free kick, decided to leave it to the goalkeeper, sort of indicated to the goalkeeper to come and take it, jogged forward and was booked for time wasting very early in the game as well. He then picked up a second yellow card for a foul and was off. And a step 5 team playing against a step 3 team with only 10 men is always going to struggle. And that's one of the reasons why Horsham won 4-1. They may have won anyway, we don't know. So a bit unlucky for Steyning, but well done to Horsham. They can look forward to the final against Littlehampton or Hastings, who play the other semi-final in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
I am, sorry. Yes, it's so nice to have a different teams in the cup final. Whoever wins out of Hastings and Littlehampton. I mean, we've covered it so many times. Crawley, Brighton under 21s, Bognor, Worthing. We're great to see those teams in it, but it's all been very similar over the last few years. So, it'd be great to see whoever gets there. It'd be a great final.
Absolutely, and I think there might be quite a big crowd. We've touched on all of Horsham's achievements, Steve. You've mentioned they've reached the second round of the FA Cup, but not only that, they reached the last 32 of the FA Trophy this season for the first time ever, and they're also very much in contention for the Isthmian Premier League playoffs. Horsham and manager Dominic DePaul have just done a superb job this season, haven't they? And normally when you go on these FA Cup runs, you think teams aren't able to catch up with league games, but they're, as I said, very much in contention, aren't they?
And they've almost timed their best league form just at the right time. Although they lost to Lewis last weekend, that was first defeat for a while, first defeat since Christmas, I think. You would have thought by now that the backlog of games would have caught up with them, but it doesn't seem to have, does it? He hasn't got a massive squad, has he? But he's rotated where he can. He's used the squad very well. He's got quite an experienced squad. He's got players who have been around a bit and know what needs to be done. Real setback losing home to Lewis last weekend. That's a couple of our teams have lost the derby against Lewis because Hastings had the same result against them a couple of weeks back. But you look at the Isthmian League table, the top half of it, Horsham are very well placed for. They don't need to be brilliant between now and the end of the season to get in the playoffs. They just need to be reasonably consistent. Win their home games and they'll be in that top 5 at the end of the season. So yeah, they've done well. I don't know how many games they will have played by the end of the season. Must be getting on for 70, I would think. So
crazy,
that takes its toll.
Absolutely. But also, let's not forget Steyning Town. For a while, it did look very much like the upset was on. They went 1-0 up and should have gone 2-0 up. But they can look back on a fabulous Senior Cup run that saw them knock out Brighton and Burgess Hill. But although their Senior Cup adventure may be over, Mark Dunford, they still have a lot to play for, don't they, between now and the end of the season?
They really do. I know we're going to come on to the Southern Combination Football League title race later, but a little spoiler. There's 3 points separate the top 4 in that Premier Division, and Steyning are in second place currently, 1 point behind New Haven, but New Haven do have a game in hand. But they're a point ahead of Crowborough, who have got 2 games in hand. But they're well in that title race, and they're also still in the. They got Haywards Heath in the semi-final of the Peter Bentley Challenge Cup as well. And they had a great FA Cup run as well, didn't they?
Yes.
Don't forget. So they've had an incredible season. I know you mentioned Nathan Cooper there, but he's a very experienced defender. I think they brought in some really good signings this year. Nathan Cooper, he was part of the Whitehawk team that has had a lot of success. He's played for Burgess Hill Town when they had a lot of success. He's played for Haywards Heath. I mean, I think it's mainly where Sean Saunders went, Nathan Cooper went kind of thing. And he's a very big hitter in the cricket scene as well for Burgess Hill. But, I mean, they scored, I think them and New Haven have both scored 87 goals so far this season in 30 games. I mean, it's incredible. And
3 games.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I was just looking at the Thomas Chalet. I hope I'm saying his name right. Scored 22 in 21 games. Charlie Meehan scored 16 goals. Harry Schumann, 16 goals. Mark Goldson, 15 goals. I mean, they've obviously got goals all over the pitch and that. But they've had a great season. And like you say, yeah, they could be still lifting more than one trophy at the end of the season, whether it be the title, Premier Division title or the Peter Bentley Challenge Cup. So, yeah, great season for Steyning.
Absolutely. And in the second Senior Cup semi-final, we've kind of touched upon it, but Isthmian Premier outfit Hastings United will take on Cup Kings Littlehampton Town on the 12th of March. How do we see this one going, chaps? I must admit, I'm finding this one a little bit difficult to call, considering the Gold's past exploits in knockout cup competitions.
Yeah, Littlehampton. You can never write Littlehampton off in a cup tie, can you? After they beat Bognor 6-1, I asked Mitch Hand, their joint manager, about it, and he said, his quote was, "We're not normal. We're a strange club. Strange things happen at this club." And he was talking about the beating Bognor 6-1, and he was probably talking about, it was probably also a reference to when they got to Wembley in the FA Vase final, despite getting knocked out halfway through the run and then reinstated. So, Littlehampton against Hastings on a neutral ground, as it will be at Culver Road on the 12th of March. I think if you were putting money on it, you'd probably put it on Hastings. I think if the game was at Littlehampton, I'd fancy Littlehampton to win that, because they can cause teams a lot of problems down there at home. I think on the neutral ground and on the 3G, that'll level things out a bit. You'd have to say Hastings are favourites, because Hastings have had a good season as well. They're also challenging for the Isthmian Premier playoffs, and Chris Agata very much wants to get to that cup final as well. But Littlehampton will have something to say about that, I'm sure.
Can you see Littlehampton upsetting the apple cart mark and continuing their excellent run in the cups?
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't be, like you say, it wouldn't be a surprise if they did. I think, like you say, Hastings probably are the favourites. Sorry, I'm just socialising the fact that Crawley Town's game off against Barrow is off tomorrow. So there's breaking news for anyone who's going to listen to 10, 15, 20 minutes. So, we should also say, I know we're talking Friday afternoon here, we should also say likely to be a lot of non-league games off again this weekend because of the amount of rain we've had. Will the wet winter ever end? I'm not sure it will. With football season lasts until June at this rate. But going back to Littlehampton hold that one of that rare thing that one of the teams that I've covered at Wembley. So it'd be good to cover them at the Amex as well. But it'd be great to see Hastings together as well. Chris Hackett's doing a great job there. I think it's sort of, like you say, it's a leveler where they're playing as well. So it's going to be a very interesting one. And whatever happens, it's going to be a really good final thing. And like you say, big crowd as well.
Absolutely. Best of luck to both teams on March the 12th. Meanwhile, Mark's mentioned the Amex, but Brighton aren't the only Sussex club who are enjoying a fine European adventure this season. Steve Bone, can you tell us a little bit about the other team who is flying the flag for Sussex on the continent this season?
Yeah, this is Lewis, and this is the Phoenix Trophy, a new competition which is an invite-only competition, and basically clubs, a small number of clubs, I think it was a dozen in total, clubs around Europe were invited to take part in this, and they were invited because of their, not just the sort of football they play, but what type of club they are. And Lewis did a lot of work on equality, diversity, inclusion, that sort of thing. They've had some really innovative schemes there. They've also got a very unusual setup with being fan owned. They've got a big group of fan owners, and I think that probably helped them as well. So they were invited into the Phoenix Trophy, and they've smashed it. Basically, they've qualified for finals weekend with a game to spare. 2 wins and a draw, I think, from 3 games so far, so they can't be caught at the top of their little table. So they had a big crowd and a good win against a team from Belgium, Beveren. Forgive me if that's not the right pronunciation. That was on Tuesday night, which means they're off to Italy in May, finals weekend. I believe 4 clubs are involved. They don't yet know where that will be. The competition has been held at a decent stadium or 2 in the past, so they'll be hoping it's in quite a grand arena. And they've also got a trip to Oslo. They've got their final group game away to FC Oslo to play as well. So real adventures for Lewis and their fans this season, and they've enjoyed it. They've made the most of it. And Tony Russell, the manager, was saying to we had a reporter at the game, Will Hugel, was there covering. Tony Russell was saying afterwards that it hasn't, it could have been a distraction from the league, but actually it's kind of brought everyone at the club together. It's brought a new sense of togetherness there. They've gone away together and travelled across Europe, and so they really feel they've benefited from it. So well done to Lewis for that, and we'll be watching to see who they play and where. In Italy, I don't know if I'm going to get an expenses paid trip to Italy. Am I to cover it? I'll ask later on. But,
you'll have to ask Gary. You'll have to price it up as well as Sam Morton did. Yeah. So
I'll ask the boss.
Yeah, I was just going to say on Lewis, and there was quite big news was it yesterday or the day before with Maggie Murphy stepping down as well? By stepping down at the end of the season, isn't she? And she's done an incredible job there. So she's been a major part of what they are all about, isn't she?
She will be missed, actually. Yeah, she's overseen a lot of the sort of changes and a lot of the new schemes they've brought in there. So, she has done very well.
Oh, absolutely. And best of luck as well, we must say, to Lewis in their continuing European adventure. Moving on to the Isthmian South East, there was a pair of West Sussex derbies over the weekend, with both games having huge ramifications at both ends of the table. Steve Bone, who came out on top of them, and how does that affect the standings?
Lancing lost at Three Bridges, which was a bit of a surprise, really, because Three Bridges started the season really well and have slipped out of the playoff zone since then. They've been a bit up and down, whereas Lancing have gone in the other direction. Didn't start the season particularly well, but have had a great run since, and are now fourth, and I think they still are fourth. But on Saturday, it was 4-1, I think, to Three Bridges. So a bit of a surprise in a way. Lancing were 2 down within 11 minutes, including a back pass that the goalkeeper sort of helped into the net. So I think they knew quite early on it was going to be one of those days. At near the other end of the table, the other game you mentioned there, Littlehampton went to Broadbridge Heath, and Broadbridge Heath beat them 2-0. Broadbridge Heath are another team who have really... They took a little while to find their feet at this level. Step 4, first season at Step 4 for them after winning the SCFL last year, but they've really they had some good results recently, up to about 14th, I think, in the table now. Whereas Littlehampton, they've had an inconsistent league season, still need some wins from somewhere to make sure they don't go down. But there are 7 Sussex teams in that division, so it's almost every week there's a Sussex derby, and they are always very hard to predict. You try to predict the outcome of, if Chichester played Burgess Hill tomorrow, it's just anybody's game. It's that sort of division, really, very dog eat dog.
Absolutely. Speaking of hotly contested divisions, Mark's already kind of touched upon it, but the SCFL Premier, the title race looks set to be the most exciting and tightest in years. How is that shaping up? And you kind of mentioned there, how fine are these margins that we're talking about?
Yeah, they're very fine. Like we said, 3 points separating New Haven at the top to Sussex in 4th. So New Haven have 65 points, Sussex on 62, with Steyning on 64 and Crowborough on 63 in the middle of them. Like we said, Crowborough have got a couple of games in hand. So actually, at the moment, it's in Crowborough's hands if they win their 2 games in hand. But it's incredibly exciting. For us, we don't really cover Crowborough, so we don't want Crowborough to win. But I'm not going to say that out loud publicly. Outrageous. It's better for newspaper sales and page views if it doesn't. Sorry, Crowborough. It's just nice to see a 4-horse race in one of these divisions, because I've been covering county league football on and off for about 25 years now. And I remember the very, very first season I properly covered, it was when Langley Sports won it. And Langley Sports, obviously now Eastbourne Borough, back in 1999. And they walked the league under Gary Wilson back then, Nick Greenwood as assistant. Gary Wilson, I think he had success at Hastings as well, didn't he, as manager? And over the years, you've seen so many teams just walk the league. I remember the year Haywards Heath won it. Yeah. Barring, actually, I think they won it 2 years on the trot, because one year they got deducted points for Littlehampton when they won it. I think they walked it, and it's sort of been a bit uninteresting as the season some come to the end. But this looks like it's going to go right down to the wire. But the only issue is, I suppose, is whether, I know a couple of these have got 3G pitches. I know Steyning have, haven't they?
New Haven has as well.
New Haven has as well. Littlehampton, I don't know. Probably should have done my research on that. But if they're a game, but obviously they'll have away games on grass pitches, which could be called off, and then there could be that backlog of fixtures where they're playing 3 games a week, sort of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, Tuesday kind of thing, which could hamper one team if they have got more games to play. Crowborough, as we've said, have got 2 games in hand on the others at the moment. But it's incredibly exciting, and and a different winner to what we've had in recent years. I know obviously teams get promoted with some, but looks like Crowborough won it back in 2007. So Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be really interesting, but great to just have that much interest going into the business end of the season.
And the other factor that is interesting in the SCFL Premier, I didn't realise this until quite recently, but there is a different playoff system this year. So everyone from 2nd to 5th will be in a playoff, and one other team will be, as long as they've got the ground and so on, the winners of those playoffs will be eligible for promotion to Step 4. So potentially you could have 2 teams going up to the Isthmian South East. So even beyond those top 4, the sides who are 5th, 6th and 7th at the moment, they're all quite close to each other. They could sneak into those playoffs and still have a go themselves. People like Eastbourne Town, Haywards Heath.
Yeah.
So,
and Eastbourne United are in there as well. Yeah, so you could have a big Eastbourne derby to go up.
There's a few clubs there that probably fancy a go at the Isthmian League, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, go on then. Who's your money on then, Mark? Who are you tipping to go up automatically? Should I say?
I've already put. I can't say Crowborough now. I want to say Crowborough. No, I think it'd be great to see Steyning do well because of the success they've had all season and how far they've gone to Senior Cup with the run they had in the FA Cup. So like that. But I quite like James Westlake as well. I've known him and I've known his dad for years. So it'd be great to see Sussex have some success because they've been a team that's just been sort of not making up the numbers as such, but they've always been sort of mid-table, win as many games as they lose. But this year they've really stepped up. So it'd be great to see Sussex have a little bit of success.
Go on, Steve, putting you on the spot. Who do you see going up as winners?
I think New Haven have been top most of the season. They've only lost a couple of games. I think they've only lost 2. They've had a few draws in games where you think they should have won. Score, as we said earlier, score lots of goals. I think they're going to hold on to top spot and get that place. They've been close to it before. A couple of years ago, they finished 2nd and played Lancing in one of those Step 4v5 playoffs and lost to Lancing. So I think it'll be New Haven's year and the rest will fight it out in the playoffs.
And finally, before we end the podcast, we pick our Sussex Non-League Game of the Week. Mark Dunford, starting with you. Which fixture has caught your eye this coming week?
Well, I've sort of gone for 2. I've gone for both of Worthing's matches because they're playing Monday. I don't know if there's any reason why they're playing Monday. Steve, do you know why?
I think it's just that is it Chelmsford they're playing, isn't it?
Chelmsford
I think
on Monday,
often play on Mondays rather than Tuesdays.
Oh, fair enough. So they've got tomorrow. They've actually I haven't picked tomorrow. I have actually picked that Chelmsford Worthing game. Who have Worthing got tomorrow, Steve? Sorry,
Dartford.
Dartford. That's it.
Yes.
I didn't write that down. So I mean, because
you should have just picked Crowborough, your favourite team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The Dartford tomorrow and Chelmsford. They're both the first games without Adam Hinshelwood. I picked mainly the Chelmsford one because of the fact that Chelmsford and them, I think they're 2nd and 3rd. Yeah. So it's a huge game, and over those 2 games, we'll see what effects Mr. Hinshelwood leaving is. Like Steve said, they lost the last 2 games with him anyway, but we could see whether we could see a big sea change in Worthing's season or not, or whether they carry on doing what they've been doing most of the season. So, it's looking at those 2 games with great interest.
Steve, I know you've kind of mentioned that several games might be at peril, but if they do all miraculously go ahead this week, which one has caught your eye?
Well, I've cleverly chosen one that will be on however much it rains because it's on 3G. I'm going Lancing v Beckenham in the Isthmian South East. If anyone else other than Lancing fans has got their game called off tomorrow, I'd recommend that as a good one to go down to. Lancing are 4th, Beckenham are bottom. Lancing really should win that. And if they do, they could be as many as 9 points clear of the teams who are outside the playoff zone. So they can start to think about, getting over the line and getting themselves a playoff place. I think it'd be a massive step up if Lancing were to win the playoffs and get promoted to Isthmian Premier. That'd be hard for them, but not beyond them with the way they've done this season. They've got a good infrastructure there at Culver Road. Lancing Beckenham tomorrow. I'm predicting a big home win for them.
Quite a lot of Sussex teams are in contention, aren't they? In the southeast playoff picture, I think, when I last looked. Yes,
well, Chichester City are just outside the playoffs. Three Bridges are still, they're not completely out of it. Burgess Hill, if they had a really good run between now and the end of the season, could sneak their way into it as well. So they won't all get in it, but Lancing are the ones who you'd think at the moment are they're not nailed on to do it, but they've got a very good chance of doing so.
Well, best of luck to all those West Sussex teams. I've gone for Wingate and Finchley at home to Hastings on Saturday. It's 4th v 7th in the Isthmian League Premier. Very congested playoff race. Sorry. So I think a win for Hastings will do their playoff bid a world of good. So best of luck to them. Thank you very much for joining us.
Breaking news, Matt didn't pick Horsham. Wow.
Well, we basically said how amazing they've been this season, so I thought I should probably... I think if people are interested, they're away at 4th from bottom Margate on Sunday and at home to bottom of the table Kingstonian on Tuesday. 6 points would be ideal if they're going to keep up their push for the playoffs, but we shall see. Thank you very much for joining us, chaps, as ever. We'll basically see you when we see you next. Thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers.
See you later.